So Sean, the reason that Kate and I were, created the poll is because we know things that they're out there we don't know, right? And maybe with having a conversation with Sean, someone else will be able to, oh, that's something really good to think about because no, for the past 50 years of 100 years of all of our companies, we haven't been able to or haven't had the need to look at AI and what that looks like and how long have they been around and how long do they want to be around? What's their process? Technology, all the legacy procedures that we have to go through. So we're all kind of like figuring it out together. So I know that I'm sure Kate appreciates your time and your being candid.
So I think the first thing you have to do is clearly identify what you're solving for. Because, Tony, you said this earlier, but AI is kind of just thrown around, right? It's just two letters that you have vendor partners that have been a part of your legacy system that now have AI solutions.
Yeah.
And well, we're right there. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
And which is great. But you need to understand what you're actually trying to solve for. And then does that actually solve that? Does it really impactful? Does it really make an impact? Or are you able to say, yeah, we have AI, and now you have to go explain it to your clients and how you're utilizing AI?
Mm-hmm.
So an example for us, our speech analytics partner is Success KPI. And when they came out with what they deemed their Gen AI suite, one of the more impactful parts of the Gen AI suite was the fact that we could automate notes and the ingestion of notes from a conversation and move it away from agents having to input that, and that we worked to create a very uneditable but yet compliant structured note that can just move into the account. Now, when you start to multiply that over 750 agents, that's very time consuming, and it has an impact in that savings of time. And it also has an impact in production. And as you can start to do that by adding in your email and your SMS and your portal engagements into that, now you actually start to have something that creates a multiplying impact, not in just the way of ingestion of notes, but also in the way of how you're looking at all of your engagements in regards to compliance and QA management across your platform. So that AI was impactful. And I think that you have to take that lens to it is, what am I solving for? And does the AI actually create that level of impact that I'm looking for from it? When it comes to being overwhelmed, I think first off, you're overwhelmed because everyone is an AI. Now, I mean, technically a company could just come out and say, hey, we're, XYZ Corp AI. And you're like, okay, I got AI. And so that in itself becomes overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Because everyone's now an AI company. And one way we approached it was by creating what we feel is a extremely comprehensive RFP. It asks, we dive into the financial aspects of it and that where they're at as a company, what their intent is as a company, because our goal is to make sure we're not looking for somebody that's going to sell. And now we have a new ownership group that does not have that same philosophy that we have inside of that process through data security, which is paramount nowadays. Actually, data security has taken a very kind of second level at times now to a primary level of evaluation, the compliance pieces that go with it. And at times, then I think you get to the operational aspects of it, because you've got all this new umbrella that sits over it that is paramount. Then you get to, does it have that operational impact? And I think you can get
Right.
fatigued. evaluating
Yeah.
vendors, looking at vendors, kind of to your point in your poll, which is, am I choosing the right person? And I think part of
Yeah.
that we looked at from, here's a version of a script. And what we're looking for is that you have an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish with our script. And we don't want to do the standard, we'll call you or you call us and we'll talk to your solution and we'll go through it because that's on your terms. Here's a modified version of our script, and you go show us, you go build this based upon what you think you comprehended from our conversations, and you go build us that simplified version of the script so we can evaluate and hear your solution and your kind of understanding of our business case, and is there value in it. That's just the front door of going through the overwhelm. Then as you select the vendor, then I think the overwhelm becomes, I have this new contract that's just not a traditional vendor contract where you're going to go, okay, these are the 19 things that we're going to ask for.
Yeah.
You're now talking about AI use of data, training use of that data, possibly in the model, and you're building all of these other parameters around it. It's not that we're not skilled at it, but you're not used to looking at it through the lens, especially then when you get into, then you have a data security lens still inside that contract, which is more robust than ever
Right.
because it's
Yeah.
AI. And then you have your compliance lens in there. And you're like, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then when you send it out, you're still at that point, you're sending it out to people that are still, well, kind of where you're at, which is we're still learning AI.
Everyone is. I think we all
Right.
will be for a long time. So if you were to say like what AI decision in CX feels riskier than it should right now, if I mean correct me if I'm wrong, I'm gleaning that not knowing what you want to have come out of it, right? Not
Right.
knowing your North Star. But also, it's a great point. But sometimes if you don't know what AI can do and you're looking at, let's just say voice AI companies, there's probably 50 of them out there. I can name 8 off the top of my head right now. So how do you decipher they're all going to have the same features? What is it boiling down to? Where are leaders getting stuck, maybe looking at a rubric instead of an RFI or an RFP, which could be super labor intensive. Sometimes a rubric is really easy. Where do you think leaders might be getting stuck in this risk that you're talking about?
Yeah. That's kind of a fair question. I think where we got, I don't want to, I think where we got stuck, and we tried to our best, is take all the personal relationships that you build and develop at conferences
Mm-hmm.
and and kind of build a very neutral evaluation system, which was 2 phases. For example, in the first part of the RFP and then the second part, we're looking at the depth of your answer and also the quality of your answer.
Mm,
And so we kind of created a 2-tier scoring system because I think that there are people that are skilled at writing and responding to
Yeah.
RFPs.
so is
And so,
AI,
yeah,
right? So is
right.
AI.
And so I think our questions flesh that out.
Mm,
And I think our evaluation process also flushed it out and then provided a, a fair balance of, here's how, for example, the 3 of us and our 3 companies ranked inside of that,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which then allowed us to go, what areas are strong, what areas are weak, and then at that same time, what areas, for example, who's weak in data security.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a concern to us versus, Kate was strong in data security and Tony was not strong in data security. And maybe that's just that those were off by 0.5,
But
but that's
still,
enough of a variance for us to say,
yeah.
hey, we have additional questions if we see value in the rest of Tony's RFP, but we have questions and we now specifically can bring those questions into focus and what we want to ask. Through our RFP process, our leader in round one was extremely thorough in both of those, along with evidence. All of the evidence that came into it with the RFP that didn't just speak to compliance and data security, it spoke to the breadth of the actual product itself. And then all of those pillars that exist into those products or inside the solution. And so I think you can't just have conversations from a conference and go, okay, this is something I want to try. Because at the moment you have that conversation, you turn around and then somebody else says, hey, I'd like to introduce you to our AI.
Yeah.
And so I think you actually have to come back and go, first off, what am I solving for? And then what are the things inside of that from a company perspective are valuable and knowing and understanding inside of an RFP.
Yeah.
And
That's
I'm going to write
genius.
that. And inside of our RFP, we also wrote an express version, which are the 15 most highly critical questions that can be asked inside of all the 91 questions that were asked. What are the 15 most critical questions and how were those answered? And then at that point, it was, does our solution, do you stand up even with those 15 questions? And I think what we found is our number one did, but then there was a flip-flop inside of the two and three spots because of the answer to those 15 critical questions, which I call the express RFP. If I had to do an RFP in 5 minutes and this is my 5-minute pitch, these are the 15 questions I'm going to
Like
ask.
a light RFP. Yeah.
Right.
And I love how you went about it too, Shawn, because something that, the way that we help, because we come in and help, like you said, fairly assess vendors side by side. And how do you fairly evaluate them if they're all showing different things, going by different scripts? So having that standardized, hey, you're all going to show me the same thing, answer the same questions, so I can compare apples to apples. Because I think that a lot of people and a lot of leaders go into it backwards and then go, well, Shawn was really strong with data security, but we didn't even ask some of the questions we asked Shawn to this other vendor, and we should have. So just being able to be proactive about that, like, hey, everybody's getting the same thing so that we go in eyes wide open. I love that approach.
Yeah, and honestly, coming from my point of view, because I was running a contact center, so I had to figure out what my North Star is, but it's hard to not be an AI, and it's so new to know what my North Star is with AI, right? I don't know what is possible. So honestly, I think having a mini RFP or a mini rubric would be good for both vendor and, potential clients. Because if the client doesn't know their North Star and I'm just throwing out information, it's going to be a huge conversation. They're overwhelmed and we never get off the ground with, let's just do something small. Let's do those low hanging fruit or those high volume things, or let's at least have a conversation. And after a while, I'm sure they get exhausted. You said that. It's just like overwhelming. Like, so another one's coming, another one's coming. I wonder why people aren't doing more simplification of onboarding them. It's really simple. Here are the little 15 questions that I need to know if you're a good fit for the vendor. Hey, 7 of those aren't a fit, so I won't waste any of my conference time, my meeting time, my flight time, because you're not a good fit and there's somebody else out there for you.
And I think everyone knows whether it's 15 or 25, whatever that number is. I think every company should know these are my key critical baseline foundational things I need you to have.
Or else it won't work.
And if you don't have it today, with all due respect, I know you can add it. But let's say when it comes to, if you want to add a data region, example, Australia. Not a lot of companies do business in Australia, but our data has to stay ring fenced in Australia. What I do know is somebody can add that. They can go build the infrastructure and they can actually add that. But if they don't have a particular security compliance standard, well, that's not something you can just go add overnight. And I think what a lot of them want to do, let's just say conversational AI, they want to come in and do a proof of concept with you. They want to come in quickly and say, we're going to show you what we can do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that in itself is exhausting because I could write the structured standard and go, here's what we're going to give you. This is what we're going to do. I still have to agree to it. I have to understand what success looks like. I still have to have a contract in place, which is its own thing. And then the reality is, let's say I like it, but I can't take it anywhere else globally with me because you only do business in the US. Well, now I'm limited by that. And now I have to actually go find that specifically for Canada, UK, and Australia. Well, that's a lot of work. So I'd rather put the work in up front to say, okay, Tony can't do business in 2 of these countries, but I also understand that maybe it's just setting up data regions, and that's something that's controllable versus going, hey, I don't have this security or compliance need met. For example, ISO 27001, just being small and goofy about it, but going, okay, well, Tony's not going to have that turn around. That's not going to turn around.
That's not going to happen. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so I think you have to know, and I think you have to look at it. You have to look at it from security. You have to look at it from compliance so that your RFP light, call it that, Kate, you called it that, is
Like that.
also a comprehensive, quick window into your entire business model.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing a lot of like those AI readiness, fill out the form and if you see how ready you are, but I don't know how valuable those are. I'm not sure if, do you think there are any questions that the leaders could be asking that they're not? Like, the know what I don't know, I don't know what I don't know. I know what I know.
Well, and I don't think there are questions because here's the one thing that everyone says in AI, for the most part. It's no, we can have you up and going in 2 weeks or 4 weeks. What do you want?
Yeah.
Well, okay, first off, I'm not going to review and evaluate a contract in 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a lot
And
of time.
so I appreciate that your solution can turn on that quickly and that you can do that work in a no code, low code moment and turn it on that quickly. But what you're not paying respect to, and I understand they're trying to solve the expediency in delivery, right? They're trying to get you from a no to a yes very quickly. But Tony, to your point, I don't think sometimes we do know those questions to ask until we get into it.
Yeah.
Which means, yeah, I appreciate that you can be up and going in 2 to 4 weeks. And we say this with all sincerity. It's not you, it's us. We're not a 2 to 4 week company.
Yeah.
It's going
And
to
that's
take
concerning too.
it's going to take 3 months to 6 months because there's a whole lot that has to happen first off to get to that point. And then, okay, now we agree on all terms, the concept of the proof of concept. Now we have to go do the project and stand up that proof of concept. That's potentially another 30 to 60 days. And so it's never just 2 to 4 weeks. And
No.
if an agency owner or a business owner can select that, if they want it to be that quick, it doesn't mean it's going to be the right thing. And unfortunately, they're going to learn that lesson, not necessarily the hard way. They're just going to learn that through experience of, okay, I chose XYZ over ABC and my experience wasn't that great. And that's just how you learn. So we try to, I think, conceptually take all of those issues up front into our RFP, which, can go out to anybody from that perspective and go, okay, we're we're not just testing your company, but we're testing your actual solution. And does it actually solve for us?
Yeah.
And
And
I
you're
think you
probably
touched,
watching.
yeah.
Oh,
No, go
jinx.
ahead. Yeah. I was just going to say, I think you touched on something key that, I always talk to people about as well. It's like you don't really know what you're getting into until you test it. And so I think AI vendors that are willing to, hey, we trust our product and the results. Let's give you a proof of concept. Cool. You like it? Let's scale it, but at least give you a taste of, what you're going to have. It's like being able to, test run a car or whatever, anything where you get to have that trial. It gives you the peace of mind. Okay, well, they trust it enough to know that hopefully I'll like it enough and trust it and want to scale it. But if not, then, you can cut ties and walk away because it didn't work. But, they weren't trying to trap you in, oh, well, no, we don't do proof of concept. You have to sign 2 to 3 years. It's like, well, why do you have to get that commitment up front without me trying your solution and proving it first? So I think that the proof of concept thing is going to be key, especially for people, that are unsure about it and have the sort of the stakes that you have where it's global and compliance based.
So I also think, though, you have to be prepared. So I think you're right, but I think you have to be prepared because you have to set the structure of that POC. And so as the business, you're in control of the POC and what you're going to allow to happen. Because, in theory, both you, Kate, and Tony could show up and both offer POCs, but you have 2 different sets of requirements needed for that, right? Which means I'm now going to tax all of my internal resources with 2 different sets of requirements versus here is a set of requirements that we will agree to, and you now have to change into my business model. So I'm ingesting this easily both times or 3 or 4 times. And I also know from a business perspective what I'm going to put into that proof of concept and then what those KPIs or whatever you want to measure, you're going to measure. And so that you're in control of it, because you could actually become overwhelmed with just POCs. And even if there's just a 10% variance and you try to do that 5 times, that's significant work for your data teams and your MIS teams, et cetera. So I think you have to actually understand what that is going into it and control it and reverse control it versus them controlling it, because that could be 2 totally different things. And I just created more work, which taxed my team more, which prevented other things from getting done in my business.
And it can leave a bad taste in their mouth for AI and be like, oh my gosh, like,
right.
Really, this is what this is what this magical AI has done. And now, or be stuck in analysis paralysis where it's like, none of them have really been that great. So we're just going to pause on this for now and come back to it.
And so, and we control the AI through, we have an AI task force, which governs AI and sets the rules for what AI is. And then when we evaluate AI, it starts that. Now, I'm not saying every company obviously has the ability to do that, but we fortunately have that ability to say, okay, we're going to have the governance structure for AI. And we can work it that way to evaluate AI. And I think by putting those components in place first, I think it allows our AI evaluation process to be efficient. Maybe it's not necessarily always as quick as our vendors would like it to be, but it allows it to be efficient and has the controls that we have to provide for ourselves, but also for our clients, because our clients are global too. And they have their own standards from all of that, their perspective of AI that you now have to manage from our partner perspective.
And what I've heard, and thanks for that, Shawn, what I've heard from a lot of people, not just, in my particular client, is that adoption is really, really hard, right? So not just agent adoption, interdepartmental adoption. So how do I operationalize even a POC? I've got to galvanize everyone to say, hey, we're trying to reduce AHT. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. and I'm going to be tracking it, you don't want to do it for 6 months. I'd love to be able to see it in 30 days, but I don't think you can see results in 30 days. It has to be at least, 3 months. But I just think it's hard to do a POC and say, okay, everybody, this is a practice test, but I want you to do 100% of your effort on it, right? And they're already busy. I'm not sure how people can get, the operational part of it in a POC. How do you galvanize the troops?
So when it, so for example, Tony, when you talk about average handle time, that was extremely easy because the last thing an agent wants to do is note an account. They don't want,
Yeah.
they don't want to do it. However, there are those agents that are extremely efficient and effective at it, and who basically said, hey, at the beginning, your AI is slowing me down because now I
Right.
have to look at what I would put into it and what it's putting into it, and that's slowing me down. Um, and so that was ultimately not an easy sell, but everyone quickly got there because it could impact their work. And they would see how it would impact their work relatively quickly. But to your point, it's not something that just happens in 30 days.
Mm-mm.
There's several iterations of that to get to perfection. And then you actually have each office has its own standards. And so it's not
Right.
just one global
Yeah.
set of standards. You have standards based upon client input, et cetera. And so
Mhm.
now you have four sets of standards. And so I think
Wow.
that you'll see that there's globally 60 to 70%, maybe 75% of the work is structurally the same. And then each office or entity has its own 25% of customization that has to exist based upon audit factors, things of that nature. When you look at conversational AI, it's the initial concern because we rolled that out a little bit on Monday in our global town hall, or last Friday in our global town hall. And instinctually, what everyone hears is AI is going to replace me.
Yeah.
And we had to spend time on it's not here to replace you, it's
Right.
here to augment and help you, much like the notes piece, by taking out the redundant work that happens so that your actual use and value is on accounts and conversations where human activity and engagement is actually needed, not on things that waste your time. And I think you have to help them set that mindset, which is, there are parts of this job that you don't like doing, and we're
Yeah.
trying to eliminate those parts so
Yeah.
that you actually feel like what you're doing isn't a bunch of crappy work, but a bunch of real meaningful work.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's where adoption is not happening, right? They're thinking, oh, this is too much work for me. You really have to explain to them, like, we used to just walk. We didn't have cars. We used to, tap on a little thing to send messages. We used to write letters and put a stamp on it. We didn't have a phone. So it's not taking your place. It's taking the place of the things that take longer, right? Or
Right.
like, I need you to have an actual voice-to-voice conversation with this person instead of thinking about the notes that you're taking, right?
Yeah.
And so it really brings the human, and we're upskilling you. We're giving you new skills. You could be the AI, you could be on the AI task force, right? This is all really, really good stuff. And find out, hey, you know what, I'm really good at some things in customer experience and I'm not good at other things. This is it's a positive thing, but it also takes the leadership. And also, going back to your point before, when you do a POC, that's when you really see the true partner. Where is the partner in this game, right? I remember onboarding a vendor, and one of the tech people was in Denmark, and he would cancel my meetings for training because he was going on a date with his girlfriend. So you really get a chance to see whether this is a workable environment for you or not. They are valuable, but I think you're right on so many points, Shawn. Yeah, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, this is super helpful. I love this. I love to hear like, you affirming already some of the things that, we've already been thinking of, like the structured use case RFP, the proof of concept, and I think another huge part that you touched on is, yes, what are you trying to solve now and what impact are you trying to make now? But what is future state? Because some vendors, whether it's AI or any other tool, they're great at this point, at this size or at
Mhm.
this with this sort of use cases. But what happens when you try to scale it, or what happens when you try to go to Australia or take it to the UK? Does it still work there? And are you okay with the fact, if it doesn't work there, that you may have to find another supplementary vendor instead of being like, oh crap, we didn't think about this before?
Right. Which I think we changed that focus last year, which is we're going to move away from site specific, maybe regional vendors, to looking at global vendors. And I think that actually changes how you conduct that. So for example, Success KPI was our first true kind of global vendor where we are going to have this technology and we're going to put this one technology other than our core operating system. We're going to put this one technology in every office. Now we ran into limitations with it, and that was because of our current at the time telephony vendors. They were different. And so we also then decided, well, we're going to change that. So now we have this technology that we can't use, but it's going to cause these regional vendors to kind of move out of our way because we're going to go find a global vendor that can actually support what we want to do. And and I get if you're just operating in the US, which a lot of people show up and they don't maybe realize that about Phillips and Cohn Associates, is that we're not just a US based entity.
Mm.
We're in 4 countries and we have a completely different structure. And at times I find it interesting when they're like, oh, well, we'll deal with that later. And I'm like, nah, I appreciate that. We'll deal with it now, actually, because that means to me, you don't actually have that solution globally. You're talking about it, or maybe you're going to move to Canada because that's very quick and easy. But I need a more robust solution than that. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Super insightful.
Yeah, this was a really great conversation and super exciting.
For
You
our
know, I
first one, Kate, like for our first,
Yeah, video.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Well, and so
really,
all of this is going to help us prep for a fireside chat, and it'll probably be virtual, which I think will be beneficial because then people can dial in from anywhere. But, Tony and I have been talking, and it's like everybody's asking these questions. And what if you can't go to trade shows or sit in a workshop, or,
yeah.
how are you going to access real leader insights? So being able to be like, oh, you know what? Actually, we have encapsulated, in video form what people are thinking currently, and an actual hands-on experience. Shawn isn't sharing about what he thinks he might do with AI. He's sharing, hey, here's the steps that we took, here's where we found success, and here's where I think other leaders might find blockers or challenges. So no, this was super helpful.
and not everyone has the time because it would be exhausting. But sometimes it's actually worth a leader setting aside a portion of their week, not for thought about AI. I think that's actually part of just what happens, but setting aside that time where they are maybe twice a week are having conversations with vendors inside of the AI space.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they need to also learn about is what's in the marketplace today, but what also is being talked about in the marketplace for tomorrow. And you might find a vendor that's you can't utilize today because maybe they're just ahead of you or their technology actually would have no real value, but eventually it does. But it also gives you thought back into, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, what am I actually looking for? What am I solving
Possibly.
for? And what am I looking for? And so I
Right.
think you constantly have to, or you not constantly, but I think you consistently have to set time aside to shop, to go through
Yeah.
demos, to see what someone's offering. Um, and possibly you find something inside of it. Everyone talks about going to conferences and I just need one good idea, right? Well, I also think you get that out of your vendor to go, hey, that was a good idea. I don't see value in the rest of this, but this one good idea, I'm recording it to keep it because maybe I want my current vendor to possibly be able to do that, or I have my wish list of things that I'm building in the way of technology offerings and AI offerings that eventually I will be able to add into it, but I need to know what that wish list is.
Right.
Yeah.
And right, Sean, so you're saying like to ask multiple people so you kind of gather all of this information and then decide from there. And then 3 months, you didn't know that that conversation that you had, like, oh, I remember Kate was just telling me about this. Great. I'm gonna start looking into that or relook at this video that we're gonna post of Sean the First.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
think we have to get that aggressive, but
um, what else was I gonna? Oh, and then the other thing that is very interesting, and you had mentioned it earlier, Sean, is like there's so many legacy vendors and sometimes they started off as UCAS or
Mhm.
whatever or QA, and then it's like, oh well, let's hop on the AI bandwagon. But it's like, okay, have they matured their AI offering? What is their AI strategy? Or are they just going to existing customers and being like, hey guys, we have AI now, we know you were shopping other vendors, but wouldn't it be so much easier to just push a button or check a
right.
box and we'll just give it to you? And it's like, okay, yeah, in an ideal world, an all-in-one encompassing solution would be great, sometimes, but sometimes you need point solutions in an AI native vendor. And so knowing the difference and, being aware of when one size fits all or all encompassing would work and when point solutions are needed.
Boom, drop the mic on that one, Kate.
And so, and I think so we looked at, so when we decided on um, our proof of concept for conversational AI, specifically for non-probate, and we're launching that in our UK-based office. There are a couple of other factors that fell into the decision making, and one of those was not just the fact that they had some compliance pieces that we needed to have in place, which gave them kind of a head start, but also, for example, the UK is a very small state, right? In a sense, when you start asking other vendors that you do business with inside of that, who have you been having conversations with and what have you seen in the market? What we
Mhm.
also found out is, oh, by the way, we're working on an integration with them for another two agencies, and it's actually complete and in testing. And what you'll find is we're going to be able to drive conversational AI triggering mechanisms out of our self-service portal for that. And you're like, okay, well, that's actually solving a couple, three problems that
Mhm.
actually we didn't even know that's something we would want to consider, but it
Mhm.
actually changed the perspective of what we were evaluating. And and so I also think you can go back to what maybe I think every company has their core vendors that are long term and people that they trust, that they also can have AI conversations with about what are you seeing, not just in your space, but in
Right.
our market space, because everyone goes to the same conferences. Everyone goes to CCW, everyone goes to ArmTech or whatever that might be in the industry you're in. And you'll also start to go, well, we're having conversations with these two people, and maybe it's because they just quickly showed up and said, we're going to partner with you. Or maybe it's because they also vetted 10 vendors and selected just 2 for specific reasons also. So I think that also
Absolutely.
becomes a resource because all of us have trusted partners inside of the work that we've been doing. So,
And maybe
Yeah.
update the RFI or RFP iteratively as you have these conversations, like this is now
right.
our priority. Now this is not a priority. So
And I
fantastic.
think, Tony, to your point, I think the RFP becomes a living document. It's a living, breathing,
It
ever-changing
should.
document based
Yeah.
upon things that people say, things that people experience, or they see at conferences and say, hey, so and so is doing this. Oh, okay, let me ingest that
Yeah.
into it and for consideration, so that iteration 1 and then iteration 3 might dynamically be 30% different, but they
Right.
add a way different value to the company. So
Yeah, lots of less time and frustration being created.
absolutely.
Well, I mean, I would really like to see, especially the RFP light questions, because I think that that's a great way
Yeah.
to, at least weed out people that, if you answer no to any of these, like you said, I'm thanks,
Don't
but no
bother.
thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
like, why waste either one of our times with filling out a 91 question RFP
Right.
if you can't even meet the core? No, this has been great. I love this, and I really appreciate your time, Shawn.
Oh, no problem.
No, this is amazing. And then whenever, we do our fireside, we'd love to have you participate in that as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Shawn, if you share anything with us, can we put it on LinkedIn as, hey, these are examples of, at Shawn suggest top 15. Would that divulge too much? Or should we just leave your name out of it? Or how could we
I
share
think you could
this?
probably share that concept. I don't think you could specifically, I think, let me say
Yeah, we
it
could
this
share
way.
the concept of 15 questions, but
You
probably I don't
could,
want to, yeah.
I think if you look at it, both based upon both of your experiences, you probably could find 15 similar RFP questions
Okay,
that you could neutralize it. So it's not technically
perfect.
ours, but you could draft accordingly to it, just
Absolutely. We won't
as
post
versions.
anything without your
Yeah.
approval.
No, I
But
appreciate that.
just, yeah. We're excited to kind of get answers for our colleagues. And who
Good.
knows, maybe easier processes for you or a vendor or an outsourcer or what do you need, Shawn? How can we help?
But I think it is overwhelming.
Mhm.
I think because I think there are times where you walk out and you're like, oh, right. I, I, I have my hands around this.
Mhm.
And then you get to Tuesday and you're like,
What?
I'm an idiot.
What happened?
I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Why did I say that on Friday?
Right. And you're like, what am I not learning? Like, what am I
Mhm.
not paying attention to? And I think it's because it is just a new frontier in theory that we're all trying to stay ahead of, and we're drastically behind. Maybe drastic's overkill, but we're behind. And then one day you feel like you're not, right? Because you maybe had a small victory in some spot, and then it's like they're like, oh, there's still all this going on. You're like, okay, thanks. I
Yeah,
don't
you
feel
read
good
one
about that.
article and it puts you 3 years behind. You're like, wait, what happened? I thought we were on top of the world. What
That's
is
fair.
going on?
Absolutely.
Ah,
Well, thank you so
Of
much.
course.
And you know what? We'll be in touch. And like Tony said, anything we post or any quotes, we'll definitely, share those with you.
Yeah,
And then
I'll
yeah,
send you phase 1, phase 2, and then the 15, just so you can see how we started to split that apart, just based
yeah,
upon our own true needs from the company perspective.
and that's the most beneficial thing that you're saying, Shawn, is to one, know your North Star, put them into an RFP and date, I guess, right? Go on a couple
yeah,
Yeah, I
date
dates.
mean,
around.
in theory, and
Yeah.
I think you have to, and that's kind of why I like the way it took a little bit of time, but the way we looked at the RP when it came in is, well, you can just look at an answer and you can read an answer, right? Go, okay, oh, Tony's answer is very similar to Kate's, but we wrote key things that actually mattered. We took keywords out of the RP, and it was basically between those two evaluations and then the evidence that you provided, it gave you a score. And we then tried to break it multiple ways. The goal is to then go, okay, is what we designed somehow favoring or it's biased? And we broke it to a point where it's like, it's not biased, it's actually accurate in our selection process, and allowed us to at least peel off our non-probate proof of concept vendor and then dive into the probate. Now, who we thought would probably lead in the probate space actually possibly might be our last place probate finisher, because the other two actually have written well-crafted, thought-through responses. And I think that becomes a key thing from a vendor is don't write marketing shit.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. Like,
no,
don't answer it from a marketing perspective. Answer it from what can you core do and what are the capabilities of the system? Because you can quickly get to, oh, you wrote marketing shit. And
that sounds really nice. Yeah.
So
well,
fluffy.
And you want to know what's interesting? My last thought here is what we find is a lot of times the people who win the RFP don't actually win the deal, because just because you can answer an RFP, there are people who do only RFPs, and that's, second nature to them. But it's like, oh, well, it sounded pretty in the RFP answer, but not in real life, not in practice. So, but yeah, that's great.
We had one of our vendors come back and said, this is the most thorough RFP that we've ever had presented to us. And I'm like, okay, well, first off, and immediately you're like, well, that's marketing.
Yeah.
That's BS.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way we're that evolved. But then you start looking at it and you're like, maybe we are, because of the depth of it. And you'll see the questions.
Well, with AI,
Yeah.
But it was just funny. I'm like, well, you're out.
Yeah.
Flattery gets you nowhere.
That was the most extensive.
That was the best RFP I've ever seen in my whole life.
I mean, Kate and I, we will say that about your RFP, Shawn. We will. We were out loud. We're going to say that. Blown away.
Perfect. I'll send that over probably not today, but sometime tomorrow.
Yeah. Take your time. And thank
Shawn,
you. All right. Thanks so much, Shawn.
Take care.
I will stop this recording, and we will chat later. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.